everybody. Welcome to episode 34 of our Healing Voices podcast and YouTube channel. I'm Aaron Lehman. Super excited to have you here today, and also super excited to be interviewing Gaeliel Apostolou today. And so those of you who are brand new to this podcast and or YouTube channel, welcome. The initial vision and goal of this podcast has been to bring forward voices of people who are on the body, mind, spirit wellness journey. Some of whom are just engaged in it day to day with their own flow. Others are practitioners, practicing coaches, massage therapists, right? I'm interviewing a variety of voices. And so my goal ultimately is, oftentimes during this last 20 years since college, I guess, I've had times where I felt super alone, just on the healing journey. And so, yeah, then I realized, like, I'll go to a retreat or I'll show up at a yoga class or I'll go travel. And then I quickly realize, when my eyes are open, like, a lot of people are engaged in this body, mind, spirit wellness evolution. And so I really wanted to create this YouTube channel to help us all realize we're not the only ones doing it. Like, sometimes like, oh, do I really want to like do that meditation? Well, I mean, I don't have to. Ultimately, it's my day to day. I get to decide, right? But seeing other people engaged in their transformation, in their healing, always has inspired me. If I'm real honest, like, it always inspires me to like hear other people's stories, hear what people are going through, hear what's going great, hear what's not going great. And just have those raw, real conversations has been so healing to my soul, and reminds me to just stay courageous, to stay in the game, to stay in this journey while it's freaking messy sometimes. And sometimes it's like you're flying and you feel real good. It's a variety show, no doubt. But I just feel like I wanted this Our Healing Voices world to be a space where we realize we're not alone. And second piece, to realize our voice is critical. Like, ultimately, like, I pray that whether you're listening on YouTube or podcast, like, that your voice matters. That if we were at a coffee shop, Gaeliel and I would be like, yes, come sit at our table. We want to hear what's going on. Like, we want to drop in and learn together, and expand in wellness together, and hold each other when we're struggling, right? So I think I hope that this is a space where you're reminded that you're not alone on the wellness journey, and also that your voice is really critical. And that book that's maybe inside of you, or that podcast that you've been thinking about launching, or maybe you've even thought about reaching out to me to say, hey, could we do a podcast, an interview or whatever? Like, yes, please. Let's keep these conversations going, and let's keep courageously saying yes to healing, and yes to utilizing our voice for the betterment of the world at large. So, all right, that's a little bit of a long intro, but those of you who are back for, and you've been around for a while, welcome back. Excited to have you back. And yeah, so Gaeliel and I, we go back a little ways. We actually go back to yoga. We were chatting yesterday, and we go back to like a yoga teacher training. And we figured out, I think it's been about 10 years ago that we met in Scottsdale, Arizona. Now we're both hanging out, living in California, near water, because we both love water. And so anyway, Gaeliel, I mean, what I'll say to introduce you is, I just have been blessed to be able to watch you, observe you, hang out with you over the last decade, and get to the thing that I love about you is just like, when we drop in, I never know what we might work on, what we might talk about, where we might go. But it's so like energizing to me. It really energizes me being around you, because you hold a space that feels safe, like that I feel safe to like talk to you about shit that I don't tell other people about, so I feel grateful on that front, and then like, and also you show up with that same sort of honesty and vulnerability. And that is just a miracle when we hang out. So I'm really excited to hang out today, and allow other people to get to know you better. to hear about the journey you've been on, and also the coaching that you offer. So I'm really excited to kind of explore all those zones. So without further ado, my first mic pass to you is, body, mind, spirit, wellness. Where did this journey begin for you? And, if you can like pinpoint back in the day or whatever, or maybe it's, here in the last decade, maybe. I have a feeling it's been a long time that you've been engaged on the body, mind, spirit, wellness path. So drop us in a little bit.
Thanks, Aaron. What a great introduction. I always love chatting with you too, because we do have such fluid conversations and so much truth and vulnerability and authenticity of who we are and what's going on. And I really appreciate that too. And I can't believe it's been 10 years. So for me, the healing, wellness, mind, body, spirit connection journey has been happening for a really long time. And I have my mother to thank for that. So my mother was a massage therapist. She was an energy healer, homeopathics, herbs. She was organic before organic was a thing, She was very much immersed in Native American traditions. And so I got exposed to a really, really broad group of things in my life from a very young age. And the understanding of the mind, body, spirit being connected was something that was natural for me, because it was something that my mom always had expressed to me, had vocalized, had taught me. I was very blessed that she taught me the ways of massage therapy, and she taught me a lot of things about food and nutrition and the herbs and the plants and the animals and nature and all of those things, right? But I would say my own personal journey, really diving deep into it myself, started when I was in my young 20s. Throughout middle school, high school, actually like throughout my whole life, I had really bad insomnia and I had anxiety. And I went through this phase in college where I literally didn't sleep for 2 weeks straight. And I felt like I went crazy, probably because I didn't go crazy because I wasn't sleeping. And I was trying everything, I'd always been into the holistic approaches, but at that point I was like, hey, give me the drugs. I just want to sleep. Right. But it wasn't working for me. And so when I went home that summer after my freshman year of college, I got introduced to Kundalini yoga. And it was the first thing that I did that naturally I was able to quiet my mind and to start seeing a shift in my mind, my body, right? All those things. And I was also dealing with some digestive issues. And I started working with, what happened is I started working with this chiropractor who was also just a doctor, an amazing doctor. And he helped me heal my gut, right? And he helped me heal my mind, my monkey mind. And he was a Kundalini yoga teacher. So I went to his class and that's how I got exposed. And I started doing that. And that just took me into a whole world deep of myself and learning who I was, learning the connection to my body, really getting some deep experiences into what is our nervous system, how does it work, how does breathing work, what's going on in this body, delving deeper into understanding nutrition for myself. And then I would say, I was on that path for quite a while, and then I ended up having some hormonal stuff happen. And my whole body was just going into a lot of pain. And I really, at that point, had to start digging a lot deeper into understanding what was going on, not just physically. And I did that already. I was already very, in tune with the idea, the concept that, our emotions affect our body, and our body affects our emotions, and our mind and our thoughts affect our body, and that affects our emotions, and all of it is interconnected, And so around that time when I was dealing with those health issues, I really started to dive deep into looking at every modality from all perspectives, because I was in a lot of pain and I needed to heal it. I needed to be back to balance, So I'd say that's how it all really started for me. And then I started going down deeper into a shamanic path and learning more of these elements. And, within all of that, I had my personal and professional development, and I've always been a personal development junkie. I love to train and to work on myself. It's a passion of mine. So that's how it all came together. But I really got to see the interconnection of, for myself, of, healing past things that we're holding on to. We all have so much trauma that, I don't like how sometimes the association with trauma is really negative. I don't think that trauma necessarily needs to be a negative thing. I think that it's just an experience that we had that was impactful, and maybe we haven't been able to let go of that experience, right? Like there's something about it that is still holding on, or there's some type of completion that needs to happen for that experience and the emotions or the physical experience or whatever it is attached to it to clear. So I think that we all have that. And then it's just a matter of looking at that, being able to do the work of reflection to say, okay, I had this experience, I created this belief system about it. And then I created this belief system and I've continued to live my life based upon this belief system and this story. And when I believe this story, I feel this way. And then these emotions, right, cause a certain thing. And then our body definitely does talk to us. I'm a firm believer in that. And there's so much science these days around that as well, of, what your connections to different areas of your body, what they represent and what's going on. So I'm really big into, okay, so how is the body talking to you? And I could just say for myself, I used to be a go, 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 go kind of person all the time. I still am, I like to do a lot, but I've learned to slow down. I've learned to say no. And a classic example for me would have been, I was go, go, go until the point my body's like, shut down, Gaeliel. We're not going to do this anymore. It's not going to happen. You need some downtime, sister, and you're just not doing it. So we're going to make you do it, right? So my body's sending me a signal because I'm emotionally and mentally pushing myself beyond a point that's healthy for me. So yeah, I just believe from my own personal experiences, the interconnection is so important of what's going on, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're eating, what you're doing for your body, who you're surrounding yourself with, your relationships. It's all so interconnected. So that's how I got into it, really my own personal experience, that made me kind of, I was already very open and receptive to that, but then it just threw me deeper into the hole.
Yeah. So it was like you had gotten all these incredible downloads and whatnot from home, from being with your mom, like, and all that she was into. So you were like, so sponging that up, right? It was like you were taking that in, but then when it was your experience with your body, right? When you're in your early 20s with sleep, that's when the light bulbs start. You had to do your own like investigation and kind of figure out, okay, what's going on here? And it sounds like you found some really incredible supporters, healers, chiropractors, doctors to help you kind of like get in there and kind of, okay, let's see what we can do, what needs to shift.
Yeah, I was very blessed to bring those people into my life, and that's something that I've always liked, meeting people, and I'm a very open-minded person. I again would say that I have my mother to thank for that, and that she was a world traveler and a very, just a very open-minded and creative woman. And she took us around traveling when I was young. I grew up traveling all over the place. So I was very much exposed to, there's so many different traditions, there's so many different thought ideas. She was a very firm believer in, every religion is saying the same thing. Find something that resonates with you. What do you connect with? That's your path, right? And check them all out and create your own path. That's also a good thing that you can do, right? So yeah, for me, that journey is like taking different elements and seeing what resonates for me, for my spirit, right? For my being. And then how can I create a system that supports me and bring in people and situations and things of that nature.
Amazing. As you think, I have to ask, like, because as I hear you talk about traveling around with your mom, I'm a little jealous. Like, I'm like thinking back on those adventures. I mean, that you had as a kid. That, what a gift that was. Like, are there any specific like memories you have, or like a trip that you're like, oh my gosh, that one trip with mom? Or, like where you went somewhere where you like fell in love with the location, or some special experience on one of those trips. Anyway, I'm just curious.
Gosh, let me think about that.
I know that's
There's
deep.
so many trips.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in Japan when I was in 6th grade. And one of the things I could tell you is just when I think about my mom and I think about Japan, I think about sushi. I think about food, and I just think about the experience of the culture and the food and how good it was. And she would just be so happy to get these, you know, huge platters, fast food, drive through sushi, and just how ecstatically just elated she was by the fact that we could get this, you know.
Totally.
And so she was an excellent chef. You know, I do professional private chefing on the side, and like part of the work I do is also helping people with their nutrition and healing their bodies through what they're eating too. And I have her to thank for that. So like, you know, she would just, in Japan, there's also these shops that are just pickled shops. So you can just go in and it's all these, you know, 30 different things that are pickled, and you could just try all these things, you know. I don't know if that was really the way it's meant to be, but that's what she did. And so we would just try it all. So just getting exposed to all these different types of food that that she loved was really fun. You know?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you do have such a gift in the kitchen with food, prepping foods. Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's awesome. And the sushi throwback. What a cool experience. Yeah, that makes me so happy that you had that growing up. Yeah. Anyway, so all right. So body, mind, spirit, wellness. You had these transformational experiences where it was like, okay, looking in the mirror. You know, we've talked about this so much, right? Just this journey of like mirror work and like sorting through like what's really going on, right? If somebody were brand new, because I think there, you know, some people, we're all on kind of different paths, you know, and like maybe we're brand new to this body, mind, spirit, wellness world, or even the idea that like emotions, thoughts, body, all are kind of playing together, interacting all the time. What like any thoughts or recommendations for somebody who's brand new to that idea, that as you think like, I mean, you explained it perfectly. I'm just thinking like, were there books that you read or stuff, or like, what would you recommend to somebody who's brand new? Because there's a lot of different body, mind, spirit, wellness, like offerings out there.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. What any basic couple tips that you might throw out to somebody who's like brand new to that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say number one, I think it's really important to be patient with yourself. I think when we dive into the world of personal development, we can get extremely overwhelmed. There's, like you said, there's so many different modalities and things and possibilities. So number one, be patient with yourself in the process. I definitely think it's like an onion pulling back the layers. And I think sometimes when we first get into personal development, we're just gung-ho into it and we go, you know, just full force. And then we can get really overwhelmed. And that can be a little bit detrimental actually to our development. So I think it's important to make sure that you're patient with yourself and that you allow time for integration. That's one of the things that I would say a lot of people don't allow for. And I've been there before. I've been that person that's just like, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do this. And then at some point there's no integration of it. It's all a mental experience, right? There's all this mental knowledge we have. But what I mean by integration is I haven't applied it. I haven't had the experience to have a situation come up and then say, okay, I'm going to apply this principle to it right now, right? So I think integrating is really important, taking that time. And that's going to look different for each person. And it's kind of tricky because at the same side of that, sometimes what happens is that we start getting into personal development. We start having things come up for ourselves. And then we're like, get back, right? And we're like, nope, done. I don't want to do anymore. It's good. I'm good. I'm healed, or I'm perfect, or I figured it out, or whatever. And then that's the other side of the coin where it's important to recognize, okay, some of this work is going to be challenging and I need to be able to step through the challenges, right? I need to be able to push through and actually go through the process. So it's this fine balance of making sure that you're not pushing yourself to one extreme, but at the same time, you're willing to do the work, to keep on going, to keep on looking, right? And I think that one of the things I'd say is a good indication of that is that if all of a sudden we're like, nope, I'm good, I'm done, you know, like that immediate trigger kind of situation, then usually that's an indicator like, okay, there's a trigger happening. There's definitely a trigger happening. Or, you know, you feel massive resistance in yourself or very closed off to something, then I usually recommend looking at that because there's probably something in there for you that you can't quite see yet. And so that can be a journey that you do with yourself. And then I do think it's really good to have to have support systems when you're doing personal development, people that you trust, whether that's family, friends, a coach, a therapist, whatever it is, right? A group that you're a part of, but having a support system as you go through the shifts and the changes, and people who understand you and are open to these concepts is really important. I would also say that it's really good to make sure that you test the information for yourself. As we started off saying, there's so many different modalities. So not everything is going to be ideal for you, right? And at that same time, I think it's really important to stay open to the possibility of things. And so for me personally, I'm one of these people that I say, okay, I'll try it once. I'm willing to give it a shot, right? I'll try it once and I'm going to see. And then I'm going to determine for myself how this resonates with me, if I connect with it, whatever it might be. But doing that is really important, because then you get exposure to so many things. And so when you step into the world of personal development, a guarantee is that you're going to be uncomfortable. Things are not going to feel good all the time, you know, and that's just part of the growing pain, right? That's what we could say. And it's simply the same thing as, you know, you could relate it to a sport, you know, and I'll tell you, like, you know, Aaron, I love snowboarding. It's my personal passion and obsession. So, but that being said, the first year that I learned to snowboard, I fell a lot, you know, I would fall and I'd get injuries, and I would have to get back up and say, I'm going to keep on going. So those of you that are related to sports, you know, it's that thing of there's growing, you have to go through the growing pains, right? You have to go through some injuries, you have to go through some failures, and you hear the leaders around the world talking about failure. Failure is inevitable, and it's important because that's how we learn, right? So with personal development, be patient with yourself. Know that you're going to come up to some challenges. Can you push through the challenge, right? And then tune into yourself and see what resonates with you, but allow yourself to have an experience, because you know, sometimes, for instance, some of the work that I do with people is also around their sexuality and relationships. And that's a really uncomfortable topic, right? Some people will hear the possibility of sexuality in a conversation and done, closed off, over, no more, right? And that's okay, right? There's no judgment. However, that would be an example of a trigger I was talking about, where it's that immediate, like, no. So that would be an example of something that it might be a value there for that person to explore, because they're so triggered by it, right? So it's giving yourself, it's all about yourself, right? So it's giving yourself the opportunity to be open-minded, to see the possibilities of what can actually come from exploring things that maybe you have some resistance to, or maybe make you really uncomfortable, you know? And it doesn't have to be that your personal development work is uncomfortable either, right? And that goes back to the integration I was talking about, where you can have an experience, you know, you can go to retreat, or you can do coaching sessions, or you can, you know, whatever it might be, you know, that you're choosing to do. Maybe you're choosing to do some plant medicine, whatever that facet is that you're going down. You can do that and then have the time to integrate, right? So have the time to allow the awarenesses to come, to process through. Because a lot of time when we do this deep work, we're changing, at least, you know, the work that I do, and I think a lot of people do, you're changing thoughts and patterns that have been ingrained into your neurological system for so long. And so the idea that I can just do a retreat on a weekend and then change this pattern and be done with it, that's not happening. That's not happening, right? No, definitely not. However, it doesn't mean that you can't have a massive shift. And maybe you will have a massive breakthrough, and that's the final thing that you needed to just completely cut it, let it go, be done with it, right? However, that integration, that time is so important, so that you can allow that process and not to be overwhelmed, right? You know, allow things to come in, allow new thoughts, new processes, new awarenesses to come in from your experience. So I think that those are some important things, you know, the patience, being open-minded, again, making sure that you're not in resistance or completely defensive. And again, looking at that and saying, then that's something that I need to look at actually, right? And knowing like I'm going to step into the uncomfortable. I'm going to do this. I can do this. And then allowing yourself that time and that space to integrate and to have support systems for you. I think that's, that would be a good package,
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. That was like amazing to listen to, because it's like, yeah, even just thinking through my own self, my own healing over here, where it's like, okay, yeah, where's the integration at, bro? Like, yeah, you're reading that, or you're getting these downloads, let's go to that next level. So those were amazing, Gaeliel. Thanks for sharing those. So, you offer wellness movements coaching, like you offer coaching to individuals. It sounds, you mentioned a few different things: food, gut health, sexuality, relationships. Do you mind sharing a little bit more just about kind of what it is you offer? If somebody comes one-on-one, or do you meet with couples occasionally, or what's kind of what would you offer people in case somebody who's listening in is like, whoa, I need support. I need somebody to support me on the path, and I don't have somebody right now. And Gaeliel, I really vibe with her. Like, anyway, what would you offer folks?
Thanks. Yeah. Well, so what I do is the integrative wellness coaching, which again gets back to the first question that we had, was about the mind-body connection. So when I work with someone, I first start looking at, I do a whole intake form, because my background is also in counseling and that type of work too. So I do a whole background of, okay, and what's going on. And I look at what's going on mentally. So what are your thoughts? Our thoughts are so important. And, I heard a practitioner the other day talking about, just the reminder of how cerebral we are, in this Western world. We're so in our mind, right? And so what are you doing in your mind, right? And is your mind your tool, or are you allowing it to run the show, right? So look at what's going on with your thoughts. What are you thinking? What are some continuous thoughts that are happening that you're aware of? What are these thoughts that are going on in the background? But what are your thoughts? What are your habits? You've created thoughts and habits. We all have, everyone, me too, right? We've all created these thoughts and these habits that then equal meaning something, commonly referred to as a story. So then we've created this story, and then we start having attachments to the story. And then we can only do certain things in our life because of this belief system that we had. So I look at a lot of the belief systems and the habits that are not really helping you anymore. So where can we break some of these things that are just not supporting the life that you want to have? And I would say ultimately, like, my main goal of my work is to help people find balance. I'm a really, really big advocate. Maybe from my mother also was really big into Zen Buddhism. And so maybe just that, but I'm really big advocate, and the yogi stuff too, of course, Erin, but of the gray zone, I don't think that the extremes at either end are really the best usually, and there's different situations, of course, but ultimately I'm just trying to help people find balance and to feel really good and happy and, healthy in their bodies. So work on the mind, right? We'll look at what's going on with your thoughts, what's helping you, what's not helping you, how can we restructure that, and what's going on with the brain, the patterning that's been developed over a period of time. We'll also get into the emotional side of things. So I would just say, first and foremost, do you even feel emotions? Right? What does emotions mean to you? And then secondly, do you feel them, or do you feel them like way too much? It's like they are overwhelming. They are taking you over. You can't even function. Things trigger you. You spin out. You can't get yourself back to balance, right? So what's happening in your emotions? What are emotions that maybe are taking you over? Right? And how do you express yourself with your emotions? Do you know how to express your emotions? So a big part of the work I do also is around communication. So what is happening? Are you able to communicate? Are you able to express what's going on? And this can definitely get into older experiences, from kids. Like, we all have those experiences as kids, growing up, even as adults, right? Different things we've had, and we have that emotional wounding that is probably there on some level. So we'll look at that, right? And then, like I said earlier, how these emotions play into the thoughts, how are the thoughts playing into the emotions. I also look at with people at their their body. So what's going on with your body, right? What are you eating? You know, like we talked about earlier, like I'm a big into nutrition and health and healthy cooking. So what are you eating? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how are you feeling? We'll talk about poop. We'll talk about how often you're pooping, you know, what's going on with that, you know, how are you sleeping? What kind of exercise are you getting? Do you feel sluggish? Do you have the energy you want? What's going on with your body, right? What's happening there? We'll get into the meditation, the breath. You know, as you know, Erin, the breath is so important. Our breath controls our whole nervous system. So that is vital for us to have an understanding of how to work with our breath, because if we don't, then it's really hard sometimes for us to get those emotions under control, to get the monkey mind, chatter brain under control. So we'll look at all the physical things. Then I like to work with people on the spiritual. And I think that that's a hot topic word, you know, some people are uncomfortable with that. To me, spiritual could mean God, spirit, you know, higher consciousness, whatever you want it to mean, you know, it could be the earth, whatever it is. But ultimately, I would say for me in my work, the spirit connection is the ultimate connection to yourself. Right? So do you have a connection to your passion, to trust? I think a lot of it comes back to what is your connection with trust, right? So and really that is all about learning to trust yourself, you know, making sure that you trust yourself. So some people connect with that concept of faith to a higher power, and then other people might be, you know, agnostic or atheist, and that doesn't resonate with them. But that still means that that person needs to have trust in their own choices. Like their faith is within themselves, in that they can trust that they know that they will always do the thing that is right for them, honor the thing that's right for them, right? And then we've got the metaphysical, and then we've got, you know, energetic, magnetic attractions, and maybe, you know, that's your vibe, right? Maybe it's nature and connecting to that. So whatever it is, finding what is your connection to spirit, however that means for you. And then I definitely work with people on their sexuality. And I mentioned that earlier because relationships are so important. Relationships are a huge part of our life. So I would say, you know, relationships and sexuality. So romantic relationships and non-romantic relationships. So who do you have in your life? How are they supporting you? What kind, if you are in a, you know, what's going on with your sexuality? Because sexuality is so important. So, you know, from a yogic standpoint, we have that Kundalini energy. That's the same thing as your sexual energy, right? Like Tantra. You know, one of the paths that I work with, Kadoshka, talk about our sexual catalyst energy. So it's all the same, really, in my personal opinion, but it's this energy that we have that flows through us, you know, and if some people are like, this is too woo-woo, right? You know, we could think about like the chakras, and that's the energy, right? It goes through the base of our spine all the way out to the top of our head. Then, you know, we can just say, hey, guess what? Science discovered that the chakras that we've been talking about forever, those areas actually have like massive, like in the body, those areas have huge amounts of nervous, like of nerves right there, right? So those are areas in our body where we have massive grouping of nerves. So it's not woo-woo, it's actually really real. Like it's really happening there. Like that part of your body is more sensitized, we could say, right? It's got all these nerve endings that are right there. And so we can work with that. We can stimulate those, right? So we work with that energy because that energy is really important. And in the world that we come from, there's a lot of stuff out there about sex, right? There's a lot of stuff out there about our sexuality, about our gender, about relationships, and there's a lot of judgment. We've been told a lot of what you should do and what you shouldn't do, what's right and what's wrong, you know? And so because of that, there is a lot of wounding, you know, and I'd say wounding in the sense of experiences that weren't that pleasant that we've had, you know, we've all had, where maybe they've left an impression in us that has affected how we choose to live our life into the future, right? So the healing of that repression of that, you know, sexual energy, or that repression of acknowledging that we are sexual beings, it holds a lot. Or even just simply, you know, what were you told you were supposed to be as a man, right? What are you supposed to look like? What are you supposed to look like as a woman, right? What are these stories that you've been told? And then how is this playing into your relationships? how is it playing into just how you present yourself in the world? Like who you are in the world, how is it affecting that? And then, you know, what do you actually like? What's your truth, right? So a lot of that work is like, let's get rid of all these stories of what you've been told, and what do you actually desire, you know? And so all of that is interconnected for me. And that's the work that I do with people on looking at all of those things and figuring out, well, what is my truth, right? Where does it lie that I can be in balance? How can I find the middle path for me? Right. And part of that, you know, a big part of that is that communication. And boundaries, working with people on setting boundaries. What are boundaries? How do I set them? How do I communicate that? You know, that's very uncomfortable for a lot of us, you know. We've all, you know, I'm sure we've all experienced that moment of being a people pleaser or going to the opposite spectrum and saying, you know what, forget it. I don't care what you think. I don't care at all. Yeah. Right. You know, like heart is shut off. I just don't give a shit, you know, to be quite blank. Right. So anyhow, so all of that is together, and I work with people on finding the balance between that. And ultimately, what is it that you're struggling with in your life, right? And that would be like the focal point. But the focal point to get to that is the way to get there is going to be through the use of looking at all those different areas. Because in my mind, all those different areas are connected. So, you know, you could tell me, I want to lose weight. Great. What's going on with your body? What, you know, a lot of people, you know, maybe they're emotionally eating, right? So what happens that you get triggered when you get home and you absolutely have to have that glass of wine to relax, or you need to have that sweet at the end of the night, or whatever it is, right? Totally. So there's an emotion, there's something that's attached to it that's causing it, right? So yeah, so that's how I work with people. That's my belief system on how everything is interconnected, if you will. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Just hearing you take us through that, because that, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think all of us, you know, I think I'm thinking back to my 20-something-year-old self and thinking like, ooh, I wish I had Gaeliel as an accountability coach, you know, like kind of helping me through dialoguing through all of this, you know, because I was, you know, I'm reading this book or showing up to this yoga training or doing these things that, you know, and you're like, mind's being opened in all sorts of ways, but then the whole integration piece and being able to process it, it's always, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, not everybody wants to drop in like this, right?
Right.
So to have a safe space like you, Gaeliel, you know, to really like process the heavier stuff that for some reason our culture has like whoosh, kind of been like, you know, unfortunately, we're not like, very few of us were raised in schools or home situations where we were encouraged to express our emotions. And what feels right to you, Erin? Do you want to eat all of your vegetables right now? Or did you actually put too many on your plate?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, totally.
Right? But I just scarfed them down because that's the law of the house, you know, like, and it was like, I wasn't learning how to check in with my body, right? So I just love what you just shared. That's so wonderful. And I really, if you are listening today on YouTube or podcast, like I'll make sure I have all of Gaeliel's contact info in the descriptions, and you can reach out to her, connect with her, and dive in, because I mean I got freaking pumped listening to you talk through all that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I think anywhere on your journey, right? I mean, I think whether you're newer to the body, mind, spirit wellness conversations, or if you've been in the game for a decade, it's like having a support person that really creates that space. I've experienced that as your friend the last decade, of just like the safety that you hold, you know, the container that you create, that it's like when we're sitting and hanging out on the beach or making a meal together and we're just diving in, you know, it's like, I just really, would encourage any of you who are vibing, like to reach out to Gaeliel for sure.
Oh,
wow. That's so awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm kind of curious. Could we do like a little just to give a little, like, you can kind of give me a
Okay.
little experiential thing right now. So I have a
Sure.
sty,
Hmm.
and I've probably been having a little more cannabis lately than I think my truth knows. But like, I guess I'm curious if you have any ideas or thoughts or questions, just as I'm sorting through like the sty, what I understand about styes or eye issues is
Mhm.
like, I'm looking at the world in, I don't know, disgust, or I have like angry eyes. I'm not like viewing like, oh, this is a safe place to be, or like, I don't know. So this is
Yeah.
my Louise Hay improv,
Right.
it's kind of what I'm.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
so anyway, I'm just curious on either of those, like, yeah, what, we chatted a little bit yesterday, but I just trust you so much in this realm. I'm curious, like, the journey with, plant medicine initially, like, for
Yeah.
me was, I mean, I did this, I was like, no, I will not, no, I will
Right.
not have that. I remember friends in my early 30s, they're like, dude, I think you're going to like cannabis. And I was like, no, I will not. I do not need to have that. I do not need to have, like, kind of like an I am better than that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then I had some experiences, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like really earthing for me. It really gets me into
Mhm.
my body and out of this like performer, perfectionist, achiever brain. It kind of brings me into like my body more, and I can relax. I can relax. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I think let's talk about it. So
Yeah.
you have chosen to associate it with the cannabis use, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right. So, and I guess just I would ask just first, like, how long has this dive been going on? Did it just start today?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like a week ago, I got this little guy, like, just have this little thing on the lower half. It's not a sty, but it's kind of like a little scab that I've kind of been paying attention to. So this one just happened overnight, like, just like woke up this morning with a sty, and last night I had some cannabis, and but was kind of unsure of whether I wanted to, like, I
Yeah,
wasn't,
yeah.
you know. Anyway, and I feel like sometimes the cannabis, like, I'll feel in my ears, like in my ear, nose, throat sort of
Sinus.
vibe. Yeah,
Mm,
like it impacts that. And so part of
okay.
me is like, I need to take a break, let my eyes clear up, let my ears clear up,
I see.
to reset, sort of thing, But then I'm
Yeah.
like, anyway.
Yeah, okay. All right, I gotcha. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, there might be some physical elements to it, like you're talking about, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
your body is trying to give you a sign. And if you're recognizing that, like, it always happens after you smoke, you get some type of irritation with the eyes or the ears or what have you, then your body is clearly giving you a message that something's not in alignment here, right? And I don't know
Yep.
what modality you're doing, you're smoking, or, there's lots of different ways.
Mainly, yeah, mainly gummies, mainly an occasional
Gummies.
gummy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I
And
would
they're
say,
pretty clean. They're like pretty
yeah.
clean gummies. They're not, like, don't have a lot of ingredients, very little sugar. They're vegan, like, they don't really have any like funky stuff in them. Like, I've looked pretty
Yeah.
carefully on that,
Sure. Sure.
but
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say, like, number one, your body, your body better than anyone else, right?
Mhm.
So if you feel that it's associated with the cannabis use, then I would say, yeah, let's go down that path of looking at it, right? Because
Yeah.
even if it physically isn't, you're mentally making that association. So there's some connection that's happening there and creating it for you, right?
Touche. Yeah.
And so I would say the first thing I'd ask you is, so what is your resistance to cannabis right now?
Mhm.
Like, in this moment today, what are your thoughts on cannabis use? Is it okay? Is it not okay? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I have like, I feel like it's been so healing for me. And
Mhm.
so I think I'm hopeful that it's going to provide a lot more healing for a lot of folks, like, around, as it becomes more legalized. And
Mhm.
just when I think about having 3 beers at the bar versus like having a small little gummy. I'm like, this feels way healthier just in comparison, like,
Sure.
and so my resistance to it is, I've got some, being spiritual, this whole, like, it really helps me. Like when I give treatments to my mom right now, as I'm giving treatments to her, like, it helps me drop into some of the chakra, the energy stuff that like, I can drop into without cannabis for sure, but it's like very, like it accelerates it and like, enhances my awareness of like, of the BS, like when I'm working on mom, where it's just like, oh my gosh, right now she just needs to like let go of, her brain is just working so hard. So we're going to bring that energy down, like anyway, so I just, but I don't want to rely on it. I think that's where I have this resistance is like, oh, I used to be like every once in a while, and then little by little, it's been like, oh, maybe it's happening 4 or 5 nights a week sort of thing, and I'm not sure that's necessarily what my spirit yearns, but that's also just some rules, like my old belief system, where I'm like, is that just an old belief system that's popping up?
Right.
I'm judging myself, right? I've got this like little like critic brain. He comes up, he's like, Aaron, you do not need to have any weed tonight. Why are you doing that? Anyway.
Well, do you feel like you're able to distinguish in your mind between thoughts and then like your core self, hearing truths, because call it, from the yoga perspective, intuition? Do you feel like you can distinguish between that voice that is just blah, 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 and the judgments and the beliefs and yada, yada, and the other voice that's a very clear connection to yourself that's saying, hey, it's a clear message? Or like anything, a gut, right? Like when we have a gut reaction, it's usually when we have a gut reaction, like that's the truth. Whatever comes to you first that's the truth, right? So do you feel that within yourself, you have an ability to feel that distinguishment?
Ooh, I mean, I wish I could say, like, sometimes I do feel that. I feel confident in like being able to get the clear downloads, but then other times I'm like, I feel a little hesitant, where I'm way more heady and brain, like going through the synapses and being like, oh yeah, is that the synapse I'm going to believe right now? And versus like into my body and being like, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I think what deep in there, it's like, there's a knowing that, it's been super, cannabis has been so healing for me, and that's perfectly okay. And it's okay that I'm going to continue to use it in the coming years and months and weeks or whatever. But right now for my body, like, it was like when I got COVID over Christmas, like, I didn't have any for about 10 or 12 days. And I wasn't maybe 100% yet. I was still kind of like iffy in my ears, but I was like, yeah, I'm good. And I started having some, and I think my body's like, dude, you need to like freaking reset, get your ears, get your, nays, that whole area. Cleared out.
Yeah, totally. So I would say it sounds like there's an opportunity for you to come into acceptance of the fact that you can view cannabis as being something that is helpful for you, and you can also take a break from it, and those two can live together, right? And taking a break from it doesn't necessarily mean that you're never going back to it, right?
Or that it's bad.
Right.
Or that it was, or, or I've been a bad boy. I've been a bad boy for having too much or something, like I had too many cookies. I've had too many cookies. It's like,
yeah. And we'll get into that in a second. So you can have both simultaneously, right? And it doesn't mean that you're going to get stuck in one or the other for a long term. You have the ability to choose, right? When you want to use it as a healing tool, and then you have the ability to listen to your body and know it's time to take a break. And one of the things I will just say for myself, and one of my belief systems is that I totally believe in tools, right? In the sense of cannabis could be a tool, right? Meditation could be a tool. Breathing is a tool, whatever it is. But again, it's back to balance. So I ultimately feel for myself around addiction, let's say, I've worked with a lot of people around addiction. So it's okay to have a glass of wine. I'm not against someone having a glass of wine. I made that reference earlier, right? But if you don't know how to regulate yourself without that glass of wine, then that's when it's a problem in my mind, right? And so ultimately, you could think about, okay, the things, and I think with your past belief systems, right? I'd like to know how that might play into some of your past belief systems around it. But ultimately, you can, choose to just listen to what is right for yourself right now. And there is something really important to recognize, that there's a difference between what the mind and the emotions want and what the body wants, right? These are all separate units, right? So like our mind, our body, our emotions, they're all separate. And so the body, sometimes, sometimes the mind and the emotions want something, but the body doesn't necessarily want it. And so it's good to recognize that those different messages that you're getting from each different facet, right? Because you've got one part of your being that's the body that's saying, hey, Aaron, I want a break. I don't want this right now, right? Then you've got this other part of you, this mental part that's like totally starting to break down the constructs of cannabis. And you're like, actually, cannabis is a wonderful thing. It can be a great thing. It's very helpful to me, right? And then there's the emotions that come up when you're experiencing it, where you're, I'm tapping in deeper and I'm using it as a tool. And it's like, great, awesome, right? So all of these things can be true. And it doesn't mean that they all are going to operate at the same time, right? So you can have separate experiences. And again, it comes back to, can you listen to yourself? Like I was asking at the beginning, can you hear that intuition versus the mind that's just saying, this is what we should do, this is what we should do, right? And so like when you're thinking, okay, like, should I have it? Should I not have it? It would be, and if we're trying to take care of the body and what the body is saying, then we would be doing more of a drop in. And I know you have the ability to do that, to listen to the body, right? To maybe go into a still meditation, or just to go into that area in your eyes, your ears, whatever it is that you're feeling right now. We're talking about the styes, the eyes, and then just feel into it, right? And just feel into that space, sensation, right? So what does the sensation feel like? What's going on there? And I'll also say, I'd invite you to let go of the cannabis story for a little while, right? So there is this whole attachment to, this is all related to cannabis, which perhaps it is in the sense of physiologically, the cannabis is not agreeing with you and you're getting these sinus responses. However, what's going on otherwise in your life, right? So the sty, when I think about the sty, I think like I'm irritated, like my eyes are irritated, right? So, what else is happening in your life, on an emotional level that you could be irritated about right now, right? What's going on there, but to bring it back, I do want to talk about those things you talked about, of it being good or it being bad, right? And those associations. And it sounds to me like, because you had such resistance to exploring cannabis or drinking or any of that things for such a long time, that there might be some residual stuff that's still there, right? Around
still likes to float in. It still likes to float in and be like, be critical,
right?
Of all of it.
Right. So
I shouldn't need this. I shouldn't need this.
Yes,
I was better. Yeah, I was better than this or something,
Right. The right and the wrongs, it's really easy for us to get into judgment about right and wrong. So what are you still holding on to? Because when you're talking about it, you can almost hear yourself like defending it, right? It's almost like from this stance of, no, it's been great. It does this and it does that, right? So, but what is it that you're still holding on to around it? And so you could think about this definition of who you were prior. Is there still part of you that you're attached to? And so I would ask you not smoking cannabis, what did that mean about you as a person? You not smoking cannabis meant something about you as a person, right? What did it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I really had like I felt like I was better. I felt like I had like a superiority ego, just like a strong ego. Like, no, dude, I don't need that. Like, to show, to like, for the awareness that it might offer. No, I don't need that. Like, I I don't have time for that. One, I don't need that. I don't, it's like like before I started exploring, it's like I had like a very achiever, like a whole nother level of achiever desires, like, and it's kind of like brought down a little bit of the ego need to be on the like dance stage all the time, like it's kind of like calmed down this like need to, I don't know. I feel like, but back in the day it was, I'm better than people who need that. Really, that was probably the belief that I had. Like, I remember what specifically at a bar, my buddy was talking to me about it once, and I was like, all right, I said, I'll have some cannabis if you go teach high school for 4 years. Because I was like, what I learned from teaching high school for 4 years was so impactful on my life, but really I was like, it's like, he's not going to go teach for 4 years. Like, but yeah. That was my ego, just like being like, well, I've learned a lot through teaching, so it's just this like story of like me being in the right, not having explored that, or,
Yeah. And I know that
a lot of rightness. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. And so I know you're very familiar with the concept of egos, right? And so I would say, like, I'm a big fan of identifying the ego. So what ego would that be? Like, if you were to name that ego, what would it be?
Say more. What do you mean? Like
this behavior of better than, I don't really need it, I'm above it, la la la. That's a persona that you created for yourself. Yep. Now we can say that's an ego persona. And so totally. I'm a big fan of just giving it a name. Like, what is
giving it a name?
Yeah, what's the name?
Mr. Clean or Mr. Superior or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Just kind of an obsession with like trying to be better than everybody.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I would say, when that comes out, when Mr. Clean comes out, that's right. An opportunity to start working with that, because it seems like there's still some of that residual left to work through, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, what's helpful is identifying it. So, okay, Mr. Clean is coming out. Where am I operating from, right? What's my, mm-hmm. And so I'm big into looking at what's the motivation for something. You're doing so, like, what are you motivated by? And so a lot of times it's these egos that we still haven't healed or we haven't let go of, right? So yeah. Mr. Clean is the one running the show, is motivated with your actions of, your choices of whether you should do it or you should not do it. Mr. Clean is having a really big part of that, right?
He's still being noisy. Yeah, dude. He will not shut up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's—
Gaeliel, you're freaking amazing. Thanks for diving into this with me. I was just like, after listening to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, like because I love the way you dive in. And so I was like, I want to allow people to like experience, like how gifted you are. Holy moly. Oh, no, really. It's so helpful to like have you kind of offer different questions. And I mean, I know we could keep going, but I kind of, sure. that was freaking amazing. Good.
Yeah. I just want to say, just keep an eye on Mr. Clean and your judge, the right and the wrong ego for sure, that. So we call it the superiority ego,
Yeah. And I love that reminder also of like, spend some time in meditation and just like reconnecting with the different, with my body, with my eyes, with my ears, like, and because I've been less intentional with my breath work, sitting on the mat, it's just like not been at the top of Aaron's list.
Yeah. One of the things I would say that's really helpful to me, and I like to work with clients, if you're familiar with it, last thing I'd say for your situation with the sty and these past judgments of who you should be or shouldn't be, is I really like to work with EFT or tapping. I think you're familiar with it, right?
Yep.
That is a tool that I think is great of looking at some of these past judgments that are still kind of creeping in and being able to clear out some of that. And with the sty, like that could be an area to work with.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Thank
you for doing that. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. We'll just take a couple deep breaths. Those of you who are listening, we'll Wow, universe, thank you. Thank you for Gaeliel for dropping in with me, and for you listeners being here and being present with me as yeah, I look in the mirror, look in the mirror with y'all. So thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's transition.
Yeah.
Another question. So you talked about snowboarding right now.
Yeah.
That snowboarding is a passion. You know, I guess I'm always curious, because I think that I was thinking about how phones have become almost like the singular passion of humans right now, or something like. Maybe this is just in the Western world, but perhaps it's around the world, around the globe. But like the phone is almost like the passion project, or it's like the thing, but you have found snowboarding, and I'm constantly seeing you like going to, like last summer, I remember you like a music event, or whatever. Like you went on a road trip here recently, Oregon and Washington, like this. I just appreciate that, just how you have a variety of passions that you I guess I'm curious, because I know that a lot of folks, I think a lot of us have found this has swooped in and become like a higher priority, maybe than I think we all could not acknowledge this as maybe taken over our snowboard passion or our nature time passion. It's like, well, actually I got a Netflix movie on right now. It's like, again, I'm just curious what you might offer all of us. And I don't want to be a judgmental, I don't want to be Mr. Judgment. Mr. Clean does not need to judge all of us on our phone use right now. But I am kind of curious, like, how have you found your passions, and how do you create that balance for yourself? Like, where are there any strategies you've found effective, just as you've been on the path, where it's like, okay, the phone, yes, I've got projects, clients, retreats coming up, appointments coming up. And also I'm Gaeliel and I want to freaking snowboard today. You know what I mean? Like, how do you, anyway, I go wherever you want with that question, but I'm just kind of curious, because I love the way you passionately live. I love your passion for life and experiencing, and it always inspires me to see your adventures.
Thanks. Yeah. Gosh, that's a big question, actually.
That is a big question.
I want to answer it in two parts. Let's see. Well, I think the first part I would say is that when you talk about the phone, here's the phone. I think that a huge part of that, and when I think about you talking about the phone, I'm thinking about social media, I guess, is what comes to mind, right? Like emails, and then Instagram and Facebook and all Twitter and the whole shebang, right? And that kind of stuff, right? And I think yesterday we were just talking about how, like, the phone, like, is the first thing you look at in the morning when you wake up, right? It's like, boom, here's the phone.
Yeah.
Who said what? I want to know,
Yeah.
And so I think that that is something that I would encourage people to do a little deep dive into. Why? What is the purpose of that connection to the phone for them, right? So obviously we live in this technological world now, and there's just a functionality of, there's an expectation in our society that I'm going to text you or I'm going to call you, and that's going to be done through a cell phone, and that cell phone is on you, so you should respond, right? And so, like, for us who are running businesses and we have responsibilities, or parents or whatever it might be, we have to have this phone, and it's a function of our life, and we look at it and it's fine, right? But when we get into what's going on with the motivation, back to that concept I said earlier, like the motivation for it. So, I was having this conversation with a client recently of, okay, they're addicted to looking at the phone, right? Like looking at Instagram all the time. And then what's happening when they're looking at Instagram? And so in this person's case, they're looking at Instagram and they're comparing themselves to other people, right? Like they get into the comparison game. And then either their life is really good or their life really sucks, you know? So what is the motivation? Why are you going to social media? I'm not against social media, by the way. I personally, being a traveler of the world, I love social media. I do feel that it's a tool that can be used in a really helpful way to stay in touch. And that's exactly what it is. It's a tool, right? So I think it's up to us to have our own personal responsibility of how do we relate to this tool? Do we use it in a beneficial way? You know, people market on social media. That's the way of the world right now. We can send messages, we can stay in touch. And I'm not against the idea of, okay, I'm traveling and I don't get to be in my friend's life right now, right? So awesome, I get to see a little snippet into their life. Sure, is it every part of their life? No, of course not. You know, most people aren't airing out all their dirty laundry on social media. Some people are, you never know, right? But in general, I'm a fan of, okay, I get to see a little glimpse. At least I get that. I'd rather have a little glimpse of what's going on than no awareness of what's going on, right? So I'm using it as a tool to stay in touch. I'm using it as a tool maybe to market or something like that, right? But if I'm using it as a tool to check out, you know, I'm unhappy with my current life. I'm not present with what's going on currently right now. I don't want to be present with what's going on currently, or I'm procrastinating, right? Or whatever the reason might be, then I'm turning to it as an escape, a form of escapism, right? And then that's when it's not really a helpful tool. It's a detrimental tool, right? And then what's my motivation? My motivation isn't coming from a place that's productive or helpful to me ultimately, right? Like maybe I could say like in that moment it is, right? But at the same time, ultimately it's not really supporting a habit of something that is going to help me. Usually it's for that avoidance of something, right? Escaping, avoiding, something like that. So I would say for people to just look at, why are you on social media? Why are you on your phone? Why are you attached to it? And then secondly, with the attachment to the phone, like, right, there is this element of boundaries I talked about earlier, where we, in this technological era, there's this expectation of, I have a phone, I text you, you probably get it immediately, you should respond immediately, right? And then that's where we get an opportunity as human beings to say, maybe not, I'm gonna create a boundary, right? That's okay. And if, you know, like obviously we're responsible, like I said, if we have a business or we have children or whatever it might be, then like we need to respond, you know, immediately for something, fine. But in general, most of the time that's not the case, right? Most of the time we can give ourselves a little break, but there's this expectation that happens, and then, you know, we feel the pressure and then we respond as quickly as possible, because if we don't respond, we're going to get in trouble and the person will be upset with us, right? And then on the other end, we've got, you know, I sent this message to someone and they never got back to me. What's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Blah, 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 right? There's so many stories happening on both sides that is the result of technology, right? And so I am a big fan of communicating. So like, you know, if it's something important, just even setting a boundary of sending a text of, hey, got your text, I'm going to get back to you in 3 hours, or I'll get back to you later this afternoon, whatever it might be. Like you can do things like that, right? So you can do healthy management of your phone and communication, so that then you're using it in a way that's productive for yourself, right? And that would come back into the second part of my answer for your question, which would be, you know, how do you balance, what I heard you asking too, is like, how do you balance kind of the pressures of all this, what I think I was talking about, that immediacy needed for people to communicate and receive that communication right away. How do you balance that with your passions in your life and what you want to do, right? And that I think simply comes down to some goal setting and time management. And that's something that's can be really challenging for some people. That's something I work with people on too, right? You know, so what are your goals? You know, and I always like to think about, okay, let's have a foundational baseline of, there are some certain priorities you've got to take care of. That's your foundation. Your foundation is, where do I eat? How do I pay for what I eat? Where do I sleep? Do I have a place to sleep? You know, our foundational needs, and, you know, of food, sleep, shelter, that kind of stuff, right? Am I taking care of myself? So that needs to be number one priority. If I don't have money and I can't pay for food and I don't have a place to live, it doesn't really matter, right? So whatever that looks like for you, making sure that you're prioritizing those things, right? And then once we have that foundational basis, then we can start integrating other things that we want, you know, like our passion. So for me, my snowboarding, right? You know, where I can slip it in. Like I slipped it in for 2 hours today, just 2 hours. And I was like, I'm going to go for 2 hours in the mountain, you know? So, and that fuels me, right? And so then we also want to think about, in terms of our priorities, what fuels you, what gives you energy, right? So if, you know, something really brings you down, now, if it's a responsibility and it's a requirement, sometimes we have to work through that, right? But if it's something that let's just say it's a friend that, you know, you're not connecting anymore, you know, and every time this person calls and talks to you, they just suck the energy out of you. You know, we all had that person. It's like, they're like a vampire and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't handle it anymore. Like something has shifted where you guys are not relating anymore and you're not receiving at the end of the experience, you actually feel deflated, you've lost energy, then that's very clearly not going to be a priority. So I think that you can think about that way too. You know, what brings energy? So for me, you know, doing 2 hours of snowboarding today got me pumped, right? It's good for my body. It's good for my, you know, for me, it's a total flow state. You know, I'm a big fan of getting into the flow. And so that's that for me, you know, but making sure that we prioritize something. And like I talked about at the beginning, the spirit's so important. So for me, connecting to nature is a really, really important thing. I grew up doing tons of outdoor. I'm a big outdoor person, you know, so connecting to nature. And so in the wintertime, this is my way of communing with nature, you know? Yeah. So what is it that you commune with that really like fires you up, gives you energy, gets you in that flow state, you feel really inspired by or happy, or you feel energized by, like those are the things we want to have priorities for, right? So that would be my answer
awesome.
for you.
Yeah, I love all your reflections there. Yeah, super great. And I love the reminder on just, it's okay to have boundaries, right? It's like, with the phone. It's okay to have the boundaries with the phone. It's okay to have boundaries with friends and our relationships, right? And figuring out what those look like and seeing the phone as a tool, not as your life. You know, it's like, it's just those little shifts. And I love the flow state and figuring out what it is that really does provide us that energy, right? The passion zones. We're worthy, right? I mean, I think that's when I see you out playing, right? On, you know, whether you post something or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I can't wait to go get on my bike, or, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of reminds me that it's really okay to like, do other things. You know, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot of other opportunities, but I think this is like, there's so many tools and options on this thing. You know, I think a lot of us have found like, oh, it almost like has substituted some of these other, like, I actually like playing, like hanging out with friends. I actually like hanging out with friends in person. You know what I mean? Like, I actually do like that. I mean, the pandemic, I think a lot of us have kind of forgotten that we still like that.
I love that you said play too. I think that's so important. I think all of us, you know, as adults get really serious, you know, and it's like all business all the time, you know, and we do need to play. We really need to play and relax a little bit.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Oh, so good. All right, 2 more questions. Are you good with that time-wise? Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. We've talked a lot over the last couple of years, but what goodness, like what goodness in the world that's kind of that you observe or that you're seeing or paying attention to, what's bringing you hope right now? Like, and, you know, and maybe it's your snowboarding, but you know, like what's bringing you hope that, that we humans, we're going to be okay, or no, you know what I mean? Like, or what's bringing you hope? Yeah. It could be regarding anything. So just hope, you know, 2022, my goal is to grow my hope. So this is why I wanted to add, I'm curious, like, you know, what's bringing you hope, in your life right now? Could be related to the larger world, but also could just be within your life.
Such a good question. Well, I would say this is an example of bringing me hope, right? I am a big believer in the change you want to see in the world happens on the micro. Like the micro level is where it starts. And so when I think about what brings me hope, I think about what am I doing in my life to create hope. I think about the relationships, the connections that I have. And so even like this experience with you, Aaron, gives me hope, right? That we're moving in the right direction. This is happening, right? And I am continuing to attract more of these experiences into my life. I'm continuing to create the world that I want to see. I'm seeing the world that I want to see in my small little area around me. And I'm a firm believer that then that trickles out and spreads out into the world, because we are magnetic. You know, I definitely believe that we attract, right? So if I'm continuously in my sphere focusing upon creating what I want, and that's good, then it's going to continue to attract it in, and that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And that creates hope for whatever it is, you know, that I want to see in the world. So that's what gives me hope, is our interconnection and just what's going on in my life, you know?
Yeah, totally. Love that. Okay. We're going to do one more question and then maybe you'll lead us in a brief little breathing exercise before we sign off. So final question. And again, you have been dropping wisdom after, wisdom nugget after wisdom nugget. But let's say if we were to sum it up, and you were to offer people, or let's say this was all they caught. Let's say they were like, they caught the last 2 minutes, last 4 minutes, whatever you end up, however long you share, what are 2 or 3 takeaways that you would love for people who have listened today, or this, whether it's nighttime where they're at, what are 2 or 3 things that you would love for people to walk away chewing on? You'd like to invite people to breathe into more, whatever, a room full of 20,000. They're hanging out, they're listening in, and they're like, tell us, Gaeliel, what do we got to do? What do we got to do?
Yeah. I love this question. So there's 2 things I would say that I'm very, very strongly based in, I believe in. I believe in them because they rung true for me. The first one is that the quicker you can accept change, the easier your life will be. The quicker you can accept change, the easier your life is going to be. Change is inevitable. It's the one thing we can definitely count upon. We don't know how to predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know that something's going to continuously shift. It's like nature. Things go in cycles, right? So I'd say that, things are cyclical, and death, the more we can become comfortable with the concept of death. So we think about, like, from a shamanic perspective, it doesn't have to be the death of a human, but just the death of things, like the death of a relationship, the death of a job, the death of whatever it might be. Maybe it is the death of a loved one, whatever it is. But like, basically when I say death, the ending of something, right? The more, and that can also be related to the change, right? Like when things change and shift, there is a dying of the past assumptions, the past way that it was is being let go of, right? It's being shed. And then we're stepping into a new situation, whatever that might be. And so a lot of our suffering comes from that attachment to what the past was, right? So the quicker that we can accept that and just move into that new thing that's being formed, even if we don't like that new thing, right? Like, I mean, I'm human, like things happen that I don't like, but what I've found for myself is that the quicker I can accept it and say, like, okay, this has really happened. I'm gonna heal the grief, the emotional part, right? We are humans, we do have emotions. So we need to allow ourselves to have that process of grieving or whatever, and whatever comes up for ourselves. And at the same time, we want to allow that emotional element, and we also want to move forward, right? We don't want to get stuck in those emotions. So we can move forward and then go into a new space of what's possible, right? Because we know that when something dies, something is reborn, and I'm just saying that just purely, not even from a religious standpoint, but from a point of nature, right? We look at winter, and then comes the spring and the summer, and then the fall and the winter. And so if you can, roll through, if you can accept that change, the easier you can just roll through it, ride the wave, if you will, the easier it's going to be, because you're not going to have so much attachment and stress and stuff attached to what it was. Then you also can open up a space to receive new possibilities. Sometimes something changes and we're so upset with how it changed that we're so attached to what it was that we can't even see the new possibility that has come in for us. That's where it goes back to what I was saying, stay open-minded, like be open to experiences you never thought in your wildest dreams you'd have, because this might be coming in for you to have something new that you never thought was possible, right? So that would be one. So accept change. The quicker you accept change, the easier it's going to be for you. And then the second thing I would say is, really in our society, is like, let's step out of victimhood. That's a big one, I think, stepping out of victimhood. And sometimes when I say this, people get really offended. It's a very hot topic, right? And all of this, and like so many people in the world want to be politically correct and all this stuff. And, okay. But the reality that I feel is that when we can let go of being a victim, then we can take our power back, right? So things can happen to us that aren't ideal, right? We know that things happen that aren't ideal. And this is like a much broader conversation I won't get into right now, of like, why do we have those things, right? So there's definitely a lot of belief systems around that. Like, did we attract it? Did we create it? Are we totally innocent, bystanders, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
My own personal belief is that we attract situations and experiences to us that are there for us to have learning opportunities, right? And I've had some things, happen to me in my life. I've had sexual abuse that I've had to heal and work through. And am I happy about that? No, I'm not happy about it, right? I'm not happy about having the experience of being, having sexual abuse happen to me. However, what I can say is that experience happened, and then I chose to step into a place of empowerment with it, right? So then I chose to step into a place of, what can I learn from this experience? What is it teaching me? And it taught me a lot. It wasn't always easy, right? And we talked about that earlier. The path to personal development isn't always easy, but it taught me things that really helped me to learn how to have really good, like better boundaries, right? I learned how to connect deeper with myself, to understand my connection to my body, to speak my truth, right? These are just examples. There's a lot we could say about that. But anyhow, if we can step out of being a victim. So if I choose to continue to view myself as I'm a victim of this sexual abuse, then I am in that victim mentality, then I can't really step into what I believe is that empowerment space, right? Stepping into the space of being empowered. And so I have a choice in that experience of how I want to respond to it, right? And again, don't get me wrong, like I had to do, and we have to do when we have traumatic experiences, a lot of healing around the emotional element of it, right? And some physical elements and those kinds of things. So not that I'm like not human in that way, yeah. But once I heal that part, I have the grief and I have the support for that, then I can say, okay, so how am I going to choose to look at myself? How am I going to continue to stand in this place? I have a choice on how I'm going to respond to something. So you can think about it with anything, whether you're at your job and someone says something really nasty to you, right? Or someone, like you're in a relationship and your partner says something that's mean in the heat of the moment. That's a very common thing, right? And they say something that's not that nice, right? So in that moment, I can acknowledge and see, okay, that was hurtful. I can say that was hurtful to me, right? And I am hurt by that. And that's where that ownership of I am hurt by that comes in, and not you hurt me, right? You did this to me. They did say something that we could say is hurtful. And then at the end of the day, it's up to me on how I choose to incorporate that into my life, right? So if they said something hurtful, then I can choose to say, oh my God, let's just say, they said, I don't like your what you cooked tonight wasn't nice. I didn't like it anyhow. Or I don't know, you know what I mean? I can choose to say, oh my God, I'm not a good chef anymore. I don't have skills, right? I can choose how I want to respond to it. Or I can choose to say, wow, like, that's an unusual comment for you. This is internal, right? Like I can internally say, okay, something's clearly going on with you right now. something's happening, and I don't think it's actually about me, because I know I made some really yummy food. And even if I made food that you don't like, that's okay. We all have different taste buds, but I'm not going to internalize it and make it mean something about me, right? Like, I'm not going to become a victim here and say, oh, poor me, like this happened. I'll just want to put a little caveat here. I'm not a fan of like supporting, verbal abuse or anything like that, but this is just a little example I'm giving, right? So, but in the sense that we have a choice on how we can choose to respond. So as people can say anything to us, right? And I was having a conversation recently with a client where it's like, people will like you and people will hate you. People are going to feel like nothing about you, how we choose to feel about ourselves is how we choose to feel about ourselves. But if we give the power away to someone else and they do something to us, and then we choose to keep on holding that, then we've given all of our power away. We've given our power away to choose how we feel about ourselves. We've become the victim instead of owning our power to say, okay, and this is how I'm going to move forward from it, right? I'm not going to continue to view myself as the emotional response that I had. I had an emotional response and it hurt, but I don't need to continue to be that emotional response. I can let the emotional response come through. I can feel the pain. I can feel the anger. I can feel whatever. And then I can go and let it go, and I'm still me, right? So that comes back to stepping out of victim mentality, is being able to really own your choices, own your power of who you are in your life and what you want to do and how you want to create whatever it is you want to create, how you want to respond to situations. So I feel very, as you can tell, passionately about that, because I think that it's something that, a lot of people aren't taking their power to say, okay, I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose, like, this situation's happening, but I'm still going to choose how I want to respond. I'm going to choose to see what I want to see. I'm going to choose to be empowered in myself, regardless of what other people are saying or what other things are happening around us, right? So that would be those two things, accept the change, right? Quicker you accept the change, easier it's going to become, quicker you can let go of that victim mentality and just choose to stay in your empowered state and choose to respond and be grounded in who you are as a being and what you know is your truth, your strengths, who you are in this world, your own self-worth, being empowered from within and not attached to your empowerment from a situation or a person or an experience, the more powerful of being you'll be. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Those are, beautiful.
Right.
Oh, Gaeliel, so many good downloads, and those were spot on. Those were great reminders. I felt like I got like I feel like I've been like getting pumped up, getting all pumped up today. I'm really feeling blessed. I'm really feeling blessed that you were willing to share your voice with this Our Healing Voices community, no doubt. So to close, well, do you mind doing a little?
Yeah, let's do something. Yeah,
a little breathing together or something.
So we talked about the breath and the nervous system, and so your breath definitely controls your nervous system. So I just wanted to share a very simple breath that other people might have been exposed to before, but I think it's a really simple tool that is amazing because it works and it's simple and you can do it. So this is just left nostril breathing. And so our right nostril is related to our sympathetic nervous system, which is our like active, right? You can think about active, energizing. It's also our fight or flight. Our sympathetic is our fight flight part of us as well. And then the left is related to our parasympathetic, which is our rest, relax, heal, revitalize kind of side of ourselves. And so, this meditation, this breath work is something you can do when you are just feeling anything from anxiety, stress, you don't know what to do, you have a decision to make. It's a great one to do at night if you've got like the mind is just churning a lot, you need to go to sleep. It's wonderful for that. If you're experiencing any kind of anxiety, if you're freaking pissed off, let's say you're at work and you just got to chill, I tell people like go to the bathroom stall and do this for 3 minutes. Okay, do it in bed at night, whatever. So just simply you want to be comfortable. So sitting up straight, it's ideal if your posture can be straight. So it could be sitting up straight in a chair, or it could be laying down. And then we're just going to take our left hand and put the index finger and thumb together in what's called Gyan Mudra, and just relax it. And then we'll take our right thumb and block off our right nostril. And we're just going to inhale through our left nostril, nice full breath. And then we're going to take our index finger, block off our left nostril, and exhale out the right. Yeah, there you go. So we're just inhaling through the left nostril and exhaling out the right nostril. Let's just close our eyes and do this for a moment. So eyes are closed, and we're just focusing on that space right between the eyebrows. Inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right. I'd like to say if any thoughts come to mind as you're doing this, that's okay. Just let them come to mind. And imagine it's just like you're at the theater and you're just watching the screen pass by. The thoughts are just passing by you. No need to participate in them. You're just seeing them. You're just hearing them. And just continue to focus on your inhaling and exhaling. You're doing great. Just a little bit more. Just continue inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right. Seeing if you can get a little deeper inhales, a little deeper exhales. So let's keep the eyes closed. Relax the hand down. Just take a deep breath through both nostrils. Deep inhale. Hold the breath for a moment. Keeping the eyes closed, exhale. Push all that breath out through the nose. One more time, I'll inhale deeply through the nose and hold it for a moment. And again, exhaling through the nose, push all that air out. And then let's just sit for a moment, and I'd like you to just observe and feel your body. Just feel where you're at. And we'll just inhale deeply and come back. Exhale and open the eyes. And, normally you could sit in that a little bit longer, probably the after, maybe you just fallen asleep. But it's really nice. We just did it for a minimum of 3 minutes, which I say would be the minimum. It definitely would encourage you to do it for 6 minutes if you can. 11 minutes is great. But really that 3 is the minimum, 6 is really more kind of like the better minimum. And then if you want to go 11, 22 minutes, but, and just, afterwards, just see how you feel, because hopefully you feel a lot more relaxed, because we're just basically activating that left side of the nostril, which is that parasympathetic rest, relax, calm side. So.
I do feel wildly relaxed right now. That was amazing.
Good.
Like my body's like, whoosh. Oh my. I might need to take a rest. That was so nice. That was so nice. Oh my. Oh, Gaeliel, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and voice today and being a part of this Our Healing Voices world. Yeah, really thankful.
Oh, thank you too, Aaron. Thanks so much. I'm so excited we got to do this, because I really admire you. And, I love and admire you and your energy that you bring. And I do love the inquisitive person that you are. And you're such a good listener, so I'm so happy and proud of you for doing this podcast and really putting your shining out into the world. So thank you for providing the space for me to share, and thank you for doing it.
Oh, thanks, Gaeliel. Thank you. Those of you who joined us on Our Healing Voices on YouTube or podcast, thank you for being here. And definitely connect with Gaeliel. I'll have all of her details below her video and also in the descriptions, so you'll be able to connect with her and dive in. What a gift you were to all of us today. I know anybody who hopped on is leaving energized and charged with an empowerment story, just turning into just remembering what powerful beings we are, especially when we're dropping in and connecting to our truth. And so I thank you for reminding us all of that. And those of you on the path that joined in, know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone, and know that your voice matters, and to just keep courageously being you and courageously healing your shit. Gaeliel and I will continue to do the same in our individual worlds, and hopefully with all of us doing this collectively, we'll continue to see transformation. So
yeah, thank you.
Gaeliel. Thanks everyone. All right,
take care.